Brian. This is my college car, 2002 Monte Carlo Super Sport. I like to call him Monty.
This is a 2002 Monte Carlo Super Sport. No, it's not an Intimidator SS. Hello Internet, and welcome to another episode of College Cars. This is my friend Brian's 2002 Monte Carlo SS. It's the only car he's ever owned, and he plans to keep this GMW body around for a while longer. This is part of the 6th generation of the Monte Carlo, which succeeded the Lumina-based 5th gen. If nothing else, the 6th gen was a lot easier on the eyes than the bland Lumina body style. Under the hood lies a GM L36 V6. Better known as the 3800, this Buick-built 6-banger turns out 200 horsepower and 225 pound-feet in the 2002 Monte. At modern standards, the power numbers aren't noteworthy, but it was on par with the competition in W's first term. For some reason, GM strapped an Eaton supercharger to thousands of the 3800s, but those didn't appear in the Monte Carlo until 2004. Power numbers aside, the 3800 Series 2 was surprisingly efficient, with highway mileage in the upper 20s easily achievable. This is all coming from an engine family that originated in the 1961 Buick Special. Here's how the somewhat well-known story of the Buick V6 goes. Buick designed a V6 based on their already tiny, but expensive in aluminum, 215 V8. Kaiser Jeep started using the 225 cubic inch version of the Buick V6 in 1965, and they bought the tooling for it in 1967, after the muscle car wars destroyed demand for the odd-firing wonder. Then came the Arab oil embargo. As fuel-starved 400s and 455s died on the roadsides in smog-choked cities around the US, Buick needed an answer. They found their answer in the tooling for the 225 in old Kaiser Jeep plants now owned by AMC. Buick bought back the tooling in April 1974 and started slamming slightly modified versions of the old 225 into cars for the 1975 model year. For time's sake, I won't go through all the incremental changes. The 3800 Series 1 appeared in 1991, the Series 2 was introduced in 1995, and the 3800 itself was produced in the same basic architecture until the final Series 3 rolled out of Flint in 2009. Alright, that's enough about Buick. All of the 6th gen Monte Carlos that weren't supercharged came with the 4T65E transmission, as did a host of other W bodies, some minivans, and the Pontiac Aztek. Right, moving on. Brian's 02 Monte Carlo looks a lot like the Intimidator version. However, it's not. It is the regular SS trim with louder than stock exhaust and aftermarket wheels. The 3800 was generally pretty reliable, aside from the occasional fire thanks to too much plastic in the engine bay. It also sounds surprisingly good. Brian had the same issue with his W body that my family did with our 2001 Grand Prix. The catalytic converter got stopped up and had to be replaced. The 6th gen Monte Carlo looks a lot like the version that was raced in NASCAR. It does have the distinction of being a very popular model on the oval, being driven for practically its whole production run. Despite a somewhat illustrious history, the Monte Carlo would never survive in the modern car market. If anything, it would cannibalize the Camaro's sales so badly it would kill both cars. It's unimaginable that one manufacturer would offer 5 different two-door coupes at the same time in today's market. And that's a crying shame. What's not to love about having enough room in the engine bay for a second big block Chevy? On a personal note, it means if Brian has a son one day that he will be the first in 3 generations in Brian's family not to have a Monte Carlo. Unless of course Brian passes this one on. Maybe he'll be able to save up for his dream car, a Ferrari F12 Berlinetta, and pass that on. Or maybe he can stick with Chevy and get a C7 Z06 Corvette, which he says is his attainable dream car. The personal luxury car is pretty much dead now. Sure, Grand Tours are still around, but that's not the same thing. Of course, there are reasons cars like the Monte Carlo and Ford Thunderbird kick the bucket, with the late 70s being a lot of them. A 5,000-pound car with 140 horsepower is not a lot of fun, and that ruined the reputation of the segment. That's all I have for the Monte Carlo. Thanks for watching.